All right, I would like to welcome everyone to the video that's going to be going through CEREC 4.6, which is our brand new CEREC software version. Starting from the main screen, not a lot is going to look different here. I do have a couple extra icons on my screen, which you can see down here in the bottom part, which is saying pending uploads. The reason for that is my system has the CEREC hub connected to it, which is going to be our automatic backup system that we now have available in the market. But outside of that, we're not going to see a whole lot different here. If I go up to the upper orange arrow, I do want to point out some differences that we're going to find in the configuration menu. So if I go to configuration and then settings, we're going to have two new icons in here. Block handling is one of them, and automatic preparation proposal. If you do not want to have the automatic margination done, feel free to go in here and just disable that function. On the block handling side of things, what we're able to do is select either the smallest possible block size, which is what CEREC has defaulted to for as long as I can remember. Then the other new function that we have is last selected block size. A lot of people will select this if they are keeping a very small inventory of, say, one size of blocks on hand. Maybe that's the size 14. That's all you have. So in that case, this could be a nice function. Again, it's only going to fit a block that the restoration actually fits into. So don't be too concerned about that. I am actually really happy to see this in this version and think it's a great addition to this software. Alright, so from the main screen, just like normal, when we're ready to add a new case, I'm going to go down here into the Add New Patient tab and go ahead and click on that. The new patient screen does look slightly different. I will type in my patient's last name, patient's first name, and then date of birth. What is nice here, scroll bar does work perfectly. And we can put in the patient ID or dentist name as you normally would in all previous versions of software. From here, I'm going to go ahead and click on Add New Case. When I get to the administration page, what you're going to notice that's different here, for those of you who have not been on version 4.5, is actually you don't have to designate crown, inlay, onlay, or veneer anymore. The software is able to analyze the preparation and put a restoration in there based on what your preparation type looks like. The other thing that we're going to notice different here for a single unit is instead of biogeneric reference, we have copy and mirror. And then the favorite materials that are going to be down here, which will be the last 3 materials that you milled. Other things that I want to point out here for expanded function side of things, we have the opportunity to do bridges. We also have the custom abutments, and a new feature for version 4.6 is the ability to do a CEREC guide, which has been in all previous versions of software. However, we now have this as a designated indication and workflow specific for CEREC guide. We will put together another video series that goes through that workflow, so I'm not going to spend time on that today, but it is a very nice addition to the software that I'm happy to see. So, single visit crown, what we need to do, I'm going to go here and select single unit, auto detect, biogeneric individual, and then I'm going to go with Celtra Duo. And for today, I have a crown prep on tooth number 47. So I will select tooth number 47, and we'll go forward to acquisition. Different than previous versions of software, when acquisition opens, the camera does not automatically turn on. However, once you pick up the Omnicam, the camera senses the motion and then turns itself on. Just like all the previous versions, the camera is going to image the same, so nothing different there. I'll start my acquisition. right, I can switch my image catalog in two different ways. I can go over here and left click on my opposing or upper jaw catalog. Otherwise, I could use the foot feet, and if I kick that gray button on the front side of the AC unit twice, it will actually switch the image catalog for me. So this process can be hands-free. Alright, and what we're noticing here, the models in the acquisition phase are going to look much different than they have previously, because we are starting to render the models and start to clean up the models here in the acquisition phase, and not just when we go forward, which is what happened in the past. So you will notice a big difference on these models, which is a very nice feature. Last but not least, I'm going to go forward and click on my buccal bite and take my buccal scan quickly. Alright, and there we have the models. What you can see is the computer has automatically articulated my upper and lower arches once the buccal bite was done. And once I have that articulated, I am good to go forward. So I will now click my double next arrows. But I do want to touch on quickly that if you do have to make any changes to the model, just like previous versions of software, we still have our cut tool here where we can go through and make those edits and either fill the data back in if needed, or just cut out the cheek and tongue. So as you can see, most of the models are already processed. As I mentioned, they are rendering and filling in the background, which is very nice. So this process that we have right now is going to go much faster than it has previously. The other thing that's being calculated at this point is the preparation margin and also the model insertion. This step that you're seeing right now is the CEREC hub, so all of my data is being backed up directly to the CEREC hub. If you don't have a hub connected, then that will not automatically come up. Okay, so we are now in the model phase. A couple things that I want to point out in the model phase that are going to be different from the previous versions of software. As you can tell, all I have on the step bar on the bottom part of the screen is draw margin. And you can see that my margin is already proposed. So at this point, when I zoom in, if I'm happy with the proposal that the software gave me, which I think it did a great job to start with, I can go forward and just let the proposal come up and get the design. If I need to make any tweaks to that margin, I definitely can, as you just saw there. The other component that I want to point out, so we are working on a computer. If that margin is nowhere near what you would like it to be, a lot of that is dependent on preparation. But if you are not happy with that and you want to start over, what you're going to do is go over here to the right-hand side, go to Tools, and I would reset that margin. What that reset button is going to do is delete the auto margin proposal and then allow you to draw that conventionally, just like you normally would have. The other things that I want to point out here, if you want to check your insertion access or you want to check your model access, you definitely can do that. If I go to the lower part of this step bar and I go ahead and click on this expansion component that's on there, what I now have is my ability to edit the model, buccal bite registration, and in the edit model stage, if I wanted to trim away any gum tissue or trim away the tongue that might be in the way, I can do that. And that's where my cut tool would come into play, where I can simply cut away any of that excess. If that is not needed, again, that's a step that can be automatically skipped. Buccal bite registration is an option as well, so this is another step where it shows me how the patient was articulating. Set model axis step is automatically done. This is again something that I don't have to worry about. To give the computer a better proposal. It is ideal to actually give a little bit more model data. So that is scanning a little bit more of the arch. As you can see here, going around to that bicuspid and getting a little bit of the curve of the arch helps align this much better automatically than if all we do is, let's say, image the 3 distal molars. If you wanted to trim your case, you still can do that. Obviously that's going to come into play when we've got some proximal boxes and we're concerned about marking that margin interproximally. And then we have our margin step. Different from previous versions of software, set insertion access is also done automatically. If you want to go in and tweak that, feel free. That's, again, up to you, but the software does do that automatically. So at this point, I am now happy with my margin. I'm happy with the model access and insertion access. I am going to go forward to my design. And I will let the computer do its proposal based on the biogeneric software. And once we have the biogeneric restoration up, I'm going to be able to do my design. Just like all the previous versions of software, we have our toolbox, which we can see here. The toolbox has limited tools right now, and the reason for that is the toolbox is actually minimized. If we go to the top toolbar up here, you can see I have a down arrow that when I highlight that gives me a text box that says full view. If I go and open that up, I now gain a couple more tools. These are tools that are not used as often, so are minimized so that you don't fill up your screen with toolboxes. So I can minimize or expand out that toolbar. A new tool for version 4.6 is the reduce function. Essentially, that gives you the ability to do a cutback. Why we are here, the other thing that I want to point out, from previous versions of software, a lot of users got comfortable and started to love the tool BioJaw. Previous versions of software had that tool located in the lower left-hand corner of the software. That is still in this software. It's actually in version 4.5 and 4.6 in the same location. But to find that, I need to expand my step bar. So if I go down here and click on that expand, I have my BioJaw, now called positioning tool. So I can definitely go back to position and rotate this restoration how I would like that to be proposed. I can change the size of it as well if I want to make sure that contacts are going to be made. I will rotate that slightly here by using my position and rotate and scale tool. And the most important piece before going forward and getting a new proposal, once I have that positioned correctly, is unticking the constrained adoption box. Once that is unticked, I now will click on Edit Restoration, and it's going to give me a new proposal based on how I positioned that restoration. So you can see it's exactly how I wanted that done, and now I can use my tools to go through here and make edits to this restoration. For this video, I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through the tools. These are the same tools that have been around for quite some time. The only new addition was the reduce tool, which again, a majority of people aren't going to use that. The reason that this was brought over to the CEREC software is because CEREC Premium software, which was the more lab-based software, has actually been discontinued. So what we're seeing is a lot of those premium features being brought into the CEREC software. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and assume that's what I want. Again, this video is not intended to train how to design a restoration. That is actually not something that I would mill currently. I would make some more changes to that. But just to go through the basics of this software, I will say that is good. So I'm going to go forward to the manufacture screen. There is something new in manufacture. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to close this down, close that down, close that. And what I want to go through is the Manufacture tab. What we have here is actually a compilation of what used to be a number of different buttons that were required to go through. So in this view, or in this one screen, what we have is our milling speed, where we can choose fast, fine, or if you have an MCXL Premium, extra fine. In this case, I selected Celtra Duo, so I can only fine mill this material. Next down, what we have is something called occlusal offset. You can see I have mine set at -175. What would be ideal is setting this anywhere from -125 to -175. If you're finding that your restorations are always coming out a little high, what you would do is just drop this occlusal offset down a little bit more. When the initial 4.6 software is installed, this will be at 0. And when it's at 0, what we want to do is drop that down to about -150, I think would be a good starting point. Once that is selected, next down is going to be our block size. And I guess before I go forward, occlusal offset, once that is set, it will stay set for all the next restorations until you change it again. Okay, so onto the block size. Celtra Duo only comes in size C14, so you can see that's the only option that I have available. If we were doing a material like Vita Mark II, I would have a series of different block sizes that I could choose from. Again, what is set here and what comes up is based on that setting that I had originally showed at the very start of this video, where I had said, show me the last block size I milled, and that's what I want to be my default. Next down are going to be the instruments. I have an MCXL Premium connected here, so I have 2 different burr sets that allows me to mill my zirconia, or in this case, the Shaper 25RZ is going to be for milling temporaries and surgical guides. And then I also have burr set 2, which is going to be used for milling my all ceramics. In this case, I can only select the burr set for all ceramics. And then we have our intaglio surface. Intaglio is how is it going to mill the inside of the crown? What I'm going to suggest is always do standard. Veneer mode is something we can cover in another video. I don't want to spend time going through that right now. If you have a CEREC Speedfire, that's going to be connected here. If it's turned on and ready to receive that case, which in this case it is, I've got my green tick and I'm good to go. I can then hit start and I am ready to mill this restoration. Before I do that, I do want to point out one thing though. In this manufacture screen, sometimes what will come up is a view that looks like this, where all it says is export to CEREC CAM. If you are trying to mill this restoration, yes, you can mill from CEREC CAM. The CAM software is another add-on to the CEREC chairside design software that essentially allows you to position multiple restorations in one block, or any block that is over 40 millimeters in length has to be milled in CEREC CAM. In this case, I'm doing a single unit. I'm ready to mill this. I'm not concerned about trying to fit 2 restorations in here. I'm just going to go ahead and actually mill this as is. However, the reason I bring this up, most of you are used to hitting start to start the milling process. If you hit start here, all it's going to say is export in case, and nothing is going to happen. This case was exported to the CEREC CAM software, and if I were to open CEREC CAM, it would allow me to mill from there. But in this case, I'm ready to mill from CEREC, so I want to make sure that if I go to my drop down and I click on the milling unit right now, here is where I can now click start on the mill, and it's going to mill out this restoration as is. And that is basically everything that is required for CEREC 4.6. It's a good overview of the software. There are some expanded functions that are in there that I didn't cover in this video tutorial right now, but we will do subsequent videos that will cover those. Thank you very much for your attention, and hope you enjoy the software.